What's going on, Intellectual Savage family? Hey, we got a great live stream that we're going to do today, and it's about fraud. Fraud has been just running rampant this week for some reason. Between Sam Bankman Fried and the Yahoos I'm going to talk about today, is literally always something on the news related to fraud. And that made me realize a few things. The first thing it made me realize is I chose the right profession. So, because there's always going to be somebody out there trying to take something. So, I should have stable employment because I don't think this is ever going to stop. And the other thing is, it's so much fraud out there. Like, I could literally, real talk, make a whole channel solely about finance fraud because it just happens every day. So, I was going to dive in a little bit more into Sam Bankman Fried because that case is just getting a little bit of crazy. But I thought, you know what? I think this is a more interesting story. So I said, let's go ahead and tackle this. Today, we're going to talk about the Jaffer family. Now, I know y'all see the thumbnail, you see the individual, Papa Jaffer, and one of the sons on there. But they had a lotto scheme that they got charged federally for operating out of Massachusetts. Now, it's interesting to kind of see how this entire fraud plays out. It's a common scheme that I have seen before. So, but I don't think it's common to a lot of people who aren't kind of in the fraud arena. So I thought it would be interesting to talk about how do you defraud the lottery for $21 million. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. While you're watching this video, if you get any value or entertainment out of it, I'm gonna ask that you support the channel by subscribing to the channel, hit the like button, leave a comment, let me know what you think, and also hit that bell notification so you can get updated on the latest videos. Now, let's go ahead and start out, okay? This was a lottery scheme, right? And I got a few videos to show, but it was a lottery scheme. Now, these type of schemes are interesting because they're normally referred to as a 10% scheme or 20% scheme. And, now where does the phrase 10% or 20% come from? Because let's just think about it. The general overview of this scheme is, hey, you want a lottery ticket. I go and buy your lottery ticket from you for 90 or 80% of the value of it. You get the cash, don't have to pay taxes on it. I get the actual lottery ticket. I can cash that ticket in, collect the winnings, and it's just a done deal. You avoid your taxes. I get 10 or 20% of the actual lottery proceeds. And then they use some unique tax evasion methods to avoid actually being taxed on these lottery winnings. They actually got about $1.2 million from the IRS in tax returns. So it's kind of crazy. So I'm gonna start out with a video. Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna start out with a video that I want you all to take a look at first. Now, this original video is from 2019. Now, you got to think if it's a lottery scheme, right? You had a father and two sons. You had Ali Jaffer, you had Yusuf Jaffer, and the son who pled guilty months ago, Muhammad Jaffer. So the father and the son Yusuf decided to go to trial, so they were found guilty. Muhammad was probably the one who was reasonable enough to just go ahead and take a plea. So that's kind of how the court angle of it played out. Now, this video I'm going to show is from 2019, and it's going to be interesting because in order to make proceeds and make significant income, $21 million of lottery tickets, I mean, we would have heard about it if these guys would have defrauded the lottery for $21 million. I mean, because that's one big ass expensive ticket. You're talking 10 million, $20 million. No one's going to have the money to pay 80 or 90% of that up front to buy that winning ticket. So it's done over a period of time with a lot of lottery tickets. And when I say lot, I mean a lot of lottery tickets. So let me go ahead and pull up this first video from 2019. Let's see. No.
5 Investigates Mike Beaudet has been following this issue for months now. He joins us now live. Mike, what is this court decision all about?
Mariana, this judge's decision lets the lottery suspend a family of players who have cashed thousands, yes, thousands of winning tickets. The lottery says Ali Jafar and his two sons are what they call high-frequency winners. Those are people believed to be cashing tickets actually bought by others. Now, the lottery suspects high-frequency winners are part of money laundering schemes. The lottery suspended the Jafars' ability to cash tickets for 90 days, so the Jafars are suing the lottery and also asked a judge to issue an injunction that would allow them to collect prize money right away. But the judge ruled no luck, motion denied. We tried earlier this year to ask Ali Jafar about all those winning tickets he's cashed. It's amazing that you've won so many times.
Thank you very much.
Can you explain it at all?
Thank you very much.
Now, the lottery tells us they're continuing to work with state and federal agencies on this issue. An attorney for the Jafars did not return a call for comment. Mike Beaudet, 5 Investigate.
Okay, so that was in 2019. Now let's talk a little bit about just the common sense or the lack thereof of common sense aspect to this. Okay, these cats, when they talk about cashed in lottery tickets, we're talking about somewhere in the area of 13,000 lottery tickets from a period dating all the way before 2019, going up and through 2020. So that's a lot of lottery tickets. So the first thing that you're going to ask yourself, because I know it's probably the first question that y'all had, is that the first question I had is, and I know y'all probably know. If you know, chime in the comments. How do they know who has winning lottery tickets? If you're purchasing lottery tickets cheaper than what the actual winnings are, how do you know and have information on who the lottery winners are? That is a question that, that's the first question that I had. I think that's the first rational or reasonable question that anyone would have. Well, I did a little open source research, and I kind of knew and figured out how it was when I saw the individuals charged. But most times when you have immigrant communities, they are a very small, close-knit community. And so when we talk about this city in Massachusetts where these individuals are from, because immigrants are a really small, close-knit community, a high majority of places that sell lottery ticket are actually owned by immigrants. So it's not uncommon for everyone in that community to know each other. So in order for them to facilitate this scheme, they weren't actually identifying the lottery winners. They knew the owners of the stores who sold the winning lottery ticket. Because when you win the lottery, what's the first thing you're going to do? Especially if you don't win it for like $20 million. If you win the lottery for $10 million, for $10,000, $5,000, a certain amount, within a certain amount, you have to go back to the actual store. And so they had these relationships with the store owners. The store owners were able to identify the persons who purchased the winning lottery ticket. And these individuals would purchase these winning lottery tickets at a reduced rate to allow them to make a profit off of the purchase when they cash it in. But the individual who legitimately won it, they actually avoid paying taxes. So it ends up working out for them as well, illegally, but in the short term. And so that was kind of the nature of how the scheme played out. That was how they were able to identify the lottery winners. So let's put this into context, okay? In 2019, the actual state lottery was like, hold up, why are these guys winning so much? You have three people who all live under the same roof. Three people who all live under the same roof win the lottery all the time, high frequency lottery winners. I mean, that just screams and yells out red flag to me. So I think that was red flag number one. And most times when you have agencies that unilaterally run investigations within a certain program or something to that effect, most times you actually have an auditing team that'll say, for example, if I was in charge of that shop, I would go to my audit team and I would say, I want to see all the lottery winners who won the lottery in the past 12 months more than 5 times, who may have other lottery winners who have the same address as them. And then I just run it. And they'll run all the data. And you know what they'll bring? They'll bring you a list of everyone who's won the lottery more than 5 times who has common address. And that's where it starts at. So that is really what triggered this. They had an audit team who did some unilateral data research. They identified these frequent, and it's probably not even a person. They probably have a computer algorithm just set up to, hey, if you see the same name or address pop up more than X amount of time, let's just go and flag it in the system so we can actually pass it to a team to look into, to investigate. Here's the crazy part. And I was just about to say, you got a better chance of getting hit by lightning or hit by a truck than with a lottery. I don't know about a truck. I know a couple people who got hit by trucks multiple times, so they may just have bad luck. But yeah, I was just about to say that the chances of winning the lottery are it's just damn near impossible. This is the reason I don't play it. The only time I play the lottery if it's an office lottery pool, because I don't want to be the only one holding the bag if in fact they do win it. But yeah, it's a very low frequency. So to have multiple lottery winners in the same household for over 10,000 lottery tickets over a given period of time is just a major red flag and a major. I mean, it gives everybody looking at it cause to pause. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the charging instrument, which is quite comical. Let's go ahead and pull this up. Let's see. All right, so right now we got the actual write-up by the Department of Justice, U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston. A father and son were convicted by a federal jury yesterday in connection with a 10%ing scheme in which they cashed winning Massachusetts State's lottery tickets on behalf of ticket holders to avoid taxes and receive tax funds. Ali Jaffer and Yusuf Jaffer, both of Watertown, were convicted of 1 count of conspiracy to defraud the IRS, 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering, and 1 count of filing a false tax return. Now, it's interesting because on the last video I did, I actually talked about conspiracy, and it's simple. It's people who make an offer for agreement, they enter into agreement to commit some type of criminal act, and they do 1 step in the furtherance of committing that act. So I mean, conspiracy, you can tack that on in a whole bunch of ways. Now, with the money laundering charge, essentially the easiest way to just think of money laundering is when you want to conceal ill-gotten gains that you received and how you received them. You know, a lot of times folks think, oh, if you hear it talked about, I guess, with drug dealers a lot, you know, like, oh, we got to find a way to launder this money. All that, just think of it as finding a way to conceal money that you illegally obtained. And a lot of times it's either done through foreign bank accounts or businesses or something to that effect. Okay, this sentences is going to be on April 11th and April 13th. The brother Muhammad, who was not pictured, he actually pled guilty to conspiracy to defraud the IRS on November 4th, and his sentencing is scheduled for March 8th. All right, let's scroll down. By defrauding the Massachusetts lottery and the IRS, the Jaffers cheated the system and took millions of hard-earned taxpayers' dollars. The guilty verdict shows an elaborate money laundering scheme and tax fraud will be rooted out and prosecuted, says the U.S. Attorney. The defendants conspired with others to purchase winning lottery tickets at cash discounts from gamblers all over Massachusetts, often using convenience store owners to facilitate the transactions. Like I said, is an immigrant community. They all really know each other because that's just how it is. You click up with people who you can relate to, and so they went through the convenience store owners to identify the persons who actually won the lottery tickets. This scheme is referred to as 10%ing because the ticket purchaser typically keeps between 10 to 20% of each ticket's value. It allows the real gamblers to avoid reporting the winnings on their tax return. The defendant and co conspirators then presented the winning tickets to the Lottery Commission as their own and collected the full value of the ticket. And they reported those winnings as their own on their tax return. And right here is the key as to how they actually avoided paying taxes. They claim fake gambling losses to offset claim winnings, thereby avoiding federal income taxes and receiving tax refunds. And they said they received tax refunds of about $1.2 million. And it's just think of it as illegal tax harvesting. You hear a lot of the finance bros on social media talk about tax harvesting, where if my income was, let's say, $100,000, but I had some losses over in the stock market, what I would do is go ahead and sell those stocks, take those losses so I can use those losses to decrease my actual taxable income. They did the same thing. That's essentially what they did. Illegal tax harvesting. They said, you know what? We're going to use some bogus gambling losses that we took to offset the winnings so we don't have to pay any taxes on the winnings. But on not only not pay taxes, get a $1.2 million total in overall tax refunds, which is insane. Now, between 2011 and 2020, the defendants and their co-conspirators cashed more than 14,000 lottery tickets and claimed more than $20 million in lottery winnings. Based upon their submitted claim, in 2019, Ali Jaffer, the father, was the top individual lottery ticket casher for the state of Massachusetts. Like, bing, 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 scheme alert. Muhammad Jaffer, the son who pled guilty already, was the third highest individual cashier, and Yusuf Jaffer was the fourth highest individual ticket casher. In total, the three family members received more than $1,200,000 in tax refunds by claiming other people's lottery tickets as their own and then offsetting the winnings with fake gambling losses and tax returns. So that's kind of the nature of the scheme that they had going on. I mean, yeah, they was being greedy, but that's the thing with fraudsters. Like, like honestly, like if you committed just a little bit of fraud, I mean, even got away with $1 million and just kind of left it alone, is actually a chance that nobody would probably look. It's probably on somebody's radar, but hey, once you go down that hole of being greedy, I don't know. I never seen nobody turn off the greed faucet. Like it's like the same concept as drug dealers. Like it's kingpins who have so much money when they store it, they got rats eating it. Like come on, bro. You got more money than you could possibly hold. What's the point? So, but the interesting thing is a lot of people ask, like, man, you do this for a living. What is the mindset or the mentality of these type of guys who always want to do these scams? And I'm going to just be honest. Greed is a part of it, but the bigger part of it is, and I've seen this from the prosecution side, from the defense side, people who engage in fraudulent schemes, they always think that they're the smartest person in the room. They literally think that they can't get caught. Think about it. That video we showed from 2019 where a judge said, wait a minute, we're going to suspend these guys' ability to cash lottery tickets for 90 days because we've seen a red flag. If you listen to that and go back in the video and watch that, these yahoos actually filed a lawsuit to try to get that overturned. Like, how stupid, like how crazy do you have to be to, one, not only do something illegal, but then when they turn off the illegal funds faucet, so to speak, temporarily, you actually use your own resources to go out and try to fight this battle in court. That's crazy as hell. The only thing that's crazier than that is the attorney who took the case. Like, I don't know. I probably would have took the case too, because I would be like, hey, if y'all want to cash these lottery tickets, I don't know. It's a cold game, but hey, you gotta get that deposit somehow. You gotta make a living. So I don't fault the attorney, but the attorney when the attorney took this case, now you won what? How many lottery tickets have you won in the past year? Okay, you had 3,000. That's exactly what they went through. They said 3,000 winning lottery tickets, and they suspended it for what reason? And you want to file a lawsuit to overturn that or get a temporary injunction to at least lift that for this 90 days? Okay, that's how you look at them. You be like, okay, and then you give them a really high price because anytime you have someone come into your office asking to do something stupid like that, when you hear it, you already know that they so stupid they'll be willing to pay a high ass price because they already ain't got no common sense for even coming to ask you that. If if I were doing something not above board and it gets halted by the judiciary, I'm not going to challenge it. That to me, that should be your alarm. Like, you know what? That was in 2019. The DOJ release said they had continued to file winnings in 2020. So even after the court stopped them, these idiots, these idiots still proceeded to do the same thing with no regard. Yeah, it's stupid. You like if you want to use a legitimate legal process to support some illegal stuff. Well, I don't know. We've seen that at the highest levels, but that's neither here nor there. I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep it to the fraud at issue. And so, but that was really just kind of the nature of the scheme. And I tell you, a lot of times representing people like that, a vast majority of them always end up representing themselves because they think they're the smartest in the room. And I talked about this individual before, but it was an individual who was charged. He ran a Ponzi scheme and he specifically targeted retired teachers. And so this guy was interesting because he was like a Harvard graduate, right? So not only do these individuals think they're smart, but if they got an Ivy League degree, it's like compounded. So every day, every time, maybe a couple times a week when I would go over there, we going through everything. This dude was continuously telling me how I should like argue his case. So I already knew. I said, I don't know how far this representation is going to go. And it's one of those things where strategy is up to the attorney. Whether or not a defendant testifies is solely up to the defendant. Now I can advise him. I was like, look, I don't think you want to get up there because when you get up there, they're going to ask you questions. You're going to have to answer the questions. And I know you think you're smart, but you aren't that smart. Everybody says that until they sitting up in that chair with everybody staring on them and that hot ass light is on top of their face. But without a shadow of a doubt, I was like, I don't think it would be in your best interest to go on there and testify. What do y'all think he went up there to do? Of course, he went up there to testify because people who commit these type of crimes often think that they're the smartest people in the room. Now, let's take a look at what the actual sanctions or punishment could be for these individuals. It's going to be crazy because when you get these type of charges for financial crimes, not only do you have a large amount of years, you have a large amount of fines, a large amount of restitution, and it gets really crazy. So let's go ahead and go back to the DOJ press release and just look at what these individuals are facing for these particular charges. All right, it says the charge of conspiracy to defraud the IRS service provides for a sentence of up to 5 years in prison, 3 years of supervised release, a fine of $250,000, or twice the gross gains loss, whichever is greater, and restitution. The charge of conspiracy to commit money laundering provides for a sentence of up to 20 years in prison, 3 years of supervised release, a fine of $500,000, or twice the value of the property involved in the transaction, whichever is greater, restitution, and forfeiture. So forfeiture is like the worst thing that I guess an individual doing any type of money fraud could see, because now they're coming after all of that nice stuff that you purchased, all of that nice stuff that you purchased with those assets they're coming after. So whether it's a house, a car, whatever it is, a Sea-Doo, because when people commit these type of things, they buy things that they wouldn't have never purchased otherwise, like an RV, a camper, all sorts of crazy stuff. The charge of filing a false tax return provides for a sentence of up to 3 years in prison, 1 year supervised release, and a fine of $250,000. I always laugh every time I get to $250,000 or twice the gross gain or loss, whichever is greater. Sentences are imposed by a federal district court judge based upon the sentencing guidelines and other statutory factors. So essentially, I'm gonna give y'all a quick scenario synopsis of yeah, it was retired teachers. It was pretty. It was retired teachers. It was pretty bad because you see the losses that the retired teachers get in. I mean, like, well, it was. You see the losses because teachers don't get paid a lot of money. It's funny, but teachers are like top 5 profession of first generation millionaires because they actually budget and they know when you don't work during the summer, they know how to rationalize their money and how to budget it out. But yeah, it was terrible because it was retired teachers, and it wasn't like a retired teacher who was like 60. He was going after like retired teachers who were like 74, where they may have some cognitive impairments or something. It was pretty terrible. But this is essentially how the sentencing is likely to play out because according to the reports and open source research, the son who pled guilty only pled guilty to 1 charge. And so he's going to get the benefit of that plea. From looking at the court records, what is they can get it all back with P. Nah, man, they can't get it all back. Oh, dog. Speaking of PPP loans, I saw a PPP loan fraud case that was cold blooded. This dude and his wife was applying for PPP loans. Like the wife's father passed away, and within 48 hours, they used his date of birth and social security number to apply for PPP loans. It is a cold game out there. But essentially, how this is going to play out, the son Muhammad, who pled guilty to that 1 charge, he's definitely going to get something like. I couldn't find a transcript of the trial. I would not be shocked considering he got that plea. Well, I mean, he only pled guilty of 1 charge, and he could have been charged with a lot more. So I guarantee you that a part of his plea agreement was to turn evidence against his family members. So we can go ahead and consider that. We can go ahead and consider that, that son who took the plea is probably not going to be welcome at the family holiday gatherings because most times when you take a plea for a lesser charge, which he clearly got because he could have been charged with a whole bunch more, there's an obligation to actually testify. So it's very likely that he testified against his father and against his other brother. Now, the 2 that went to trial, let me explain to y'all how jury trials work. Okay, I'll talk about it from if I'm sitting in my prosecutor's hat and I'm prosecuting, right? If I'm prosecuting an individual, you committed fraud, I'm going to give you a deal. I'm going to say, look, hey, defense counsel, hey, let's go ahead. You want to try to resolve this? Let's resolve it. I'm going to give you a deal, and I'm a very fair guy. Like I'm adamantly against overcharging. Like, no, if it's a charge that I can't prove, I'm not charging it. I don't like that school of thought of just throw a bunch of charges on the indictment, and no, I'm not doing that. If it's something I can't prove, we're not even looking at it. So I'm going to tender a plea to the defendant and the defense counsel. Now, once I give that plea, you have a specified amount of time to either come back to me and, hey, you can always try to negotiate something else. You can come back and ask for more, or you can either accept it or decline it. But there's a clock on it. Once you decline it or that expiration date lapses and nothing happened with that plea, the minute that I have to start preparing for trial, now I'm already got all my evidence, but the minute that I have to actually start preparing at trial, I'm not offering you a plea. If I offer you a plea, it's going to be way worse than the first one. Just because now I got to use resources. We tried to resolve it. You declined it. So I'm probably not going to offer a plea again. And if I do offer a plea again, it's not going to be nowhere as near as lenient as the first plea. Now, unless there's some crazy evidence that we get that changes things, that's always, when you got to go back to the drawing board. But generally, you get one shot at a plea. If you don't take it and I got to start going to trial and preparing and doing all that work, I'm not giving you a plea. And when we go to trial, I'm asking the judge to max you out. Whatever the max is, Your Honor, that's what I want him to have. That's typically how it goes. Now, looking at these facts, I actually would. I need to go back and find the transcript of the trial because I'm sure it's pretty interesting. Because there's three things that defense attorneys try to do. Okay, you try to come up with a defense. In this case, there's no defense to it. If you can't come up with a defense, the next thing you try to do is every crime, like when I talked about conspiracy, and I talked about in order to prove a conspiracy, it got to be an agreement to carry out some ill plan. And I went through all of those things. And in the end, you have to make an overt act in the furtherance of committing the actual crime itself. And so if you don't have a defense, which these guys didn't do, the next thing any defense attorney would do is try to disprove one of the elements for whatever the person is being charged with. Okay, that's your second option, which look weak as hell just in general. The third option is I like to call it the empathy or muddy the waters. Okay, you really don't got no argument. You're just trying to muddy the waters of the evidence by providing evidence to the contrary to hopefully convince one juror out of 12 that you aren't guilty, to best case scenario get a hung jury. So that's typically the order that the defense attorney is going to go. They're going to go down that road. Is there a defense? No defense. Can we defeat one of the elements of any of these charges? If no, hey, let's see if we can do jury nullification. Can we present enough evidence to convince at least one juror that this person is not guilty and maybe get a hung jury or something to that effect? Those are really your options as a defense attorney. Now, if you're a juror sitting on the bench, a judge, and I've never been a judge, but I've worked for a lot of judges. If you're a judge sitting on the bench, judges actually, not all the time, but if it's a trial that a judge is hearing that has an actual legitimate legal or factual argument, so like, oh, there's an argument or issue surrounding the interpretation of law, or for example, the facts can go either way. You know, like, oh, is this self-defense or isn't? I don't know. The person weighed 300 pounds and outweighed this person by 100 pounds, but this person was a third-degree black belt. Did he need to pull out it? When you got an issue of law or issue of fact, most judges, if you actually have a trial and there's a legitimate issue, when the sentencing come around, they're a lot more lenient and a lot more less likely to just max you out. But when you have a jury trial for a case where the facts are really clearly obvious that you did whatever was in that charge and indictment, I'm not going to say every judge I've ever been in front of, but 99.2% of them, hey, if you make them have a trial for some evidence that clearly identifies you as guilty, and I would tell my clients that. I would tell them, hey, this is the case, this is the facts. Just know, if you go to trial, this judge is likely going to max you out, because the way the court looks at it is that you wasted my time sitting here for 3 days worth of trial to hear this particular information. So they have to know that going in. But that's how this case is going to play out. I think those guys, the two who had the jury trial, they're going to get hit over the head. I'm probably going to do an update in April, because by the time April comes, all parties involved would have all parties involved would have been through the entire sentencing process, so we will know what everybody got. But I just wanted to jump in and talk about this again. Remember, Sam Bankman-Fried was going to lead the way, because he had just he had some crazy text messages out there, but it was just so much going on with that case. I couldn't do it in a viable time frame, and I don't want to hold everybody up. So, I appreciate all y'all for tuning into this video. I appreciate the support. Y'all take care. Have a blessed day. Peace.